Online facilitation requires rules and guidelines. The rules of online engagements or online communication is different from those that applies to communication in person. In this lesson, we will be discussing do's and don'ts of online communication. My name is Adebuti Oluwaseyi. The topic of this lesson is netiquette and providing feedback for facilitators and lecturers. Without further ado, let us dive straight into the lesson. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to know what netiquette is. You should also know the general netiquette for students, the netiquette that applies to forum, netiquette that applies to virtual classroom, and netiquette that applies to assignment submission. These are different activities that requires feedback, giving feedbacks to your lecturers. So we'll be discussing all of these. So what is netiquette? Introduction. Netiquette is a set of rules that encourages appropriate online behavior related to social and cultural norms of a community. So the community is your learning space, the online class, your discussion forum, the assignment submission. There is a normal, there are rules that guide these activities. So the principle of online communication are similar to those for face-to-face conversation, but there are important differences too. So they are almost the same thing, but there are rules and guidelines are somehow different. So we'll be discussing some of these in other slides. So the general rules, the general netiquette for all students. Number one, clarity is essential. So you must make sure that your ideas are or your discussion are clear to everybody and precise. You should also promote healthy discussion. So discussion or topics that will distract the class or that will distract your instructor should not be mentioned or discussed at all in any of the medium or in any of the activity. So also you should respect each other. You should as a matter of importance accord everyone in the community or in your class respect. You are also here to learn, so try as much as possible to give people the room to discuss their own idea or thoughts. Give them the room to express themselves. Everybody is here to learn. So also remember, words are permanent. Whatever you say are permanent. You can't take it back. So before you talk or before you throw out any discussion, try and think about it before you put it out. Once it's out, you can take it back. Also, before you discuss anything, before you put out any answer, before you put out any thought, please do your findings. Make sure that you are giving out factual information. Please try as much as possible to avoid making unnecessary or erroneous remarks, and also make your point in a nice way. You don't have to abuse or make negative remarks. Just make it in a very simple way. Discussion forum is a platform where lecturers put out a particular topic and allows the students to engage or interact or share their opinions about the topic. So there are rules and guidelines that surround this particular activity. So we will be discussing on that. So the first thing to discuss here is, before posting your question to a discussion board, check if anyone has asked it already and received a reply. So before you put out any question, scan through the discussion board to see if that question has been asked before and if it has been answered. So before you do that, before you post any question, scan through. That's the first rule, so that you to avoid repetition of question, so that also you won't be spamming the discussion board. Another thing here is don't add links, comments, opinions, or images that are not relevant to the discussion. So you don't spam the discussion board with unnecessary links, comments, or opinions, or images that would distract or deviate from the topic of discussion. So you should abide by that rule. Another thing here is always remember to use polite words like please. If you need help, if you need a particular student or your colleague or your classmate to help you in a particular topic or a particular question, and also try as much as possible to at least put thank you for anyone that has answered or that offered and help. Thank you, please won't kill you. So try as much as possible to do this. Also, before you post, first thing you have to do is okay, do a fact checking. Do before you put out any information, make sure that what you're putting out, the opinion or the idea, is actually factual, not something erroneous. Also, be respectful to your peers' viewpoint. If you feel the urge to dispute, do it politely and acknowledge the valid point in your classmates' arguments. What that means is, what that is simply saying is, if you did not agree with your classmate or your peers' viewpoints, you can do that politely. You don't have to comment negatively. Don't let that person feel bad about his viewpoint. Everybody is just there to learn. So also another point here is be clear and be precise. This talking about clarity. Make your point, make it clear, and let it be precise. It's doubtful that anyone will take the time to go through a lengthy lecture in answer to a short question. So if you want to answer this very short question, you also, as much as possible, try and be short. Just make it short and brief. Be brief about this. Don't put out a lengthy lecture on a particular on a question that requires just a simple answer. Another thing is check the most recent comment before you reply to an older comment, since the issue might have been resolved or opinions might have changed. So before you make a comment on any post that is older, go through the comments, see people's reaction, so that you won't be repeating the same idea that might have been mentioned earlier, or also the discussion might have actually faced another direction. So read through the comment before you also comment. So if your point is actually different from what has been put out before, then you can go ahead and drop your comments. Another thing is avoid all caps. Avoid writing in capital letters. That might show that you're actually shouting or making unnecessary emphasis on your own idea. Virtual classroom is an environment where you have lecture online using tools like Zoom and Google Meet. There are rules and guidelines that surround this activity. So if you want to be in this space, you have to observe some major rules and guidelines. Now, the first thing is don't assume everyone understands where you're coming from. What this simply means is avoid making unnecessary jokes. Jokes uh, can be offensive to some people. So just make your point and be precise. Don't avoid unnecessary jokes. Now, the second point here is chat box are incorporated into many online classes as a place for students to share ideas and ask questions related to the lesson. It can be helpful resources or a major distraction. Will this be a major distraction? Is when you put in unnecessary jokes, unnecessary links, remarks that are not related to the class. So if you want to use the chat box, make sure that it is related to the subject of discussion. The next thing is, it's a good idea to keep your mic on mute when you are not speaking, so that the background noise doesn't impact other students. So if you are not talking, you can mute your mic to avoid distraction from the background noise. So if you are not talking, put it off. If you need to talk, raise your up your hand or signal to the instructor to allow you to speak. And when you want to speak, make sure that you remember to turn it to unmute yourself. That's another cogent rule. Now, another one is, make sure your space looks presentable. Make sure there is nothing in the background that may distract you from the class or embarrasses you. Before you join the meeting, make sure that your background is okay. There is no distraction at the background. There is nothing that will embarrass you in the background. So make sure that you are in a good environment suitable for online learning. Also, find a quiet, private place to attend the meeting. So to avoid distraction, go to a place that is quiet and private, so that people around you will not distract you and will not make unnecessary noise when you are talking. Also, limit video distractions such as children, pets, and excessive noise. So as part of our discussion earlier, make sure that your place is quiet. Distraction should be minimal. Treat your classmates, instructor, or instructional assistant with respect. So when you want to talk, avoid using vague words. Don't abuse anybody. Make your remark, make it positive, constructively, and don't abuse anyone. And also remember to position your camera to show your face, and avoid directing it too high or too low. Too high is your face. If you place it too high, your face might not show very well. If you place it too low, your face might also not show very well. So try and position your camera very well. Also, the next activity is when you're submitting assignment. So when you want to submit assignments, let's say your instructor or your lecturer give out an assignment, and you have to submit an assignment. Submission, this is a major activity that requires you giving feedback to your lecturer. So rules and guidelines around this: don't assume your lecturer knows you if you are instructed to submit an assignment by email. So if you want to submit an assignment by email, don't assume he knows your email address. Make sure you remember to put your name, the subject, your matric number, every other information that is necessary. And also the subjects, so that your mail or your assignment won't be lost in the piles of his email. The next thing is, you shouldn't attach files for which you are not sure if your lecturer will be able to open. So what that means is, make sure that what you want to attach will be readable by the lecturer. So, and also additionally, you should follow specific instructions your lecturer gives about assignment submission. So some of these lecturers do give guidelines on how you're going to submit the assignment. So follow that guideline strictly. Also, if you have to submit the assignment via the virtual learning environment, your LMS, also make sure that you submit on or before the deadline. Now, this one is very, very important. You cannot submit your assignment after the deadline. You can only submit if your lecturer decides to change the date of submission or the deadline. That is when you can. So once the deadline it's pulled out, you won't be able to submit. So try as much as possible to submit before or on the day of the deadline. So these are few of the rules guiding online communication for virtual learning environment. Thank you.